He was the only one of the 4 grandparents who I remember. The other 3 had died either well before I was born or soon after I was born. And he sadly passed away when I was about 7 or 8. But during that time, I was able to have a bit of a relationship with him, which was very positive. He was my mother's father, and he was an ex-policeman and an ex-publican. So I think when he left the police force, he went into running a pub in Nottingham, and was very, very straight-laced, very, not authoritarian necessarily, but he taught me right and wrong. One thing that he certainly established for me was around being safe. So particularly crossing the road as a 5 or 6 year old, in those days we were much more independent. We were able to go to the shops on our own, we went to school on our own, we crossed busy roads on our own, which you don't always get now with children, but in those days it was the norm. And he was the person, rather than my parents, who taught me those life skills. Living next door was my mother's brother, one of her brothers, lived next door to his father, and he had 2 kids. So probably while my mother was catching up with her dad, we were off playing. Staying indoors wasn't something that was particularly appealing to me as a 6-year-old, so I would have been out there on the streets playing football or something. One connection I do have with my grandfather is this pocket watch, which sadly at the moment doesn't work. It did used to work, and I have had it working. It basically it's probably an advert for Guinness, and he was probably given it when he was working in the pub. But the toucan, which is the symbol for Guinness, would nod backwards and forwards every second, and it's a rather treasured possession really. It's my only connection with him in that sense. When he was 6, 7, 8, we would do things like jigsaws together, we would paint together, we would do maths puzzles together, we would read together, we would go and visit places together. So consequently, from those experiences which were shared, I'm sure there was a lot of learning. He is also very keen on rugby, very keen on football. Well, they were things which I, as a child and as a teenager like him, was very keen on doing. And when I went to university, I played rugby for the university team. So we have that in common as well. So when I've been able to see him play rugby or play football, that's been another way of making that connection. As he's got older, some of those interests have caused not sort of a divergence, but they're things that I'm not interested in. And that's great. And I think I totally support that, because he's not a clone and he's not someone who's going to follow exactly my path in life. So he's got interests like rowing, which I would never ever have taken up, and he's doing it at a very good level. He has also probably learned something about drive. I think he's probably learned something about thinking of other people. I think he's also learnt to pace himself a bit, because it's terribly easy when you're that age to do everything and become exhausted. I've learnt about the importance of this intergenerational relationship, and the fact that whilst, to be honest with you, I hadn't probably dwelt upon the relationship with my grandfather until William. So there would have been a gap of probably 50 plus years where I probably hardly ever thought about the chap. But since we've had this relationship between my grandson and myself, it really has enabled me to reconnect back to that as well, and to draw positives from that, which can then help today. I don't want to be someone who is solely looking back and staying in that period back then. It's a case of what can I take from that period that's passed into making today and tomorrow more useful. I think he would have been immensely proud. I think he would have been quite surprised, because my background is very much solid working class. I was the first person from a very large family to go to university. I went to a school where expectations were low. I lived in a council estate where expectations were extremely low. I had a childhood which was happy in many respects, but I was determined to do better in my life. And I think whilst William has had a far more comfortable childhood and upbringing, he does have a drive in him that I can recognise and applaud and encourage, because I think it'll stand him in good stead. And I think my grandfather, if he was looking down on me from up there on high, would probably think the same.